Hey,
you're
shut
the
the hell
Dark
up.
Souls. I love you. Wow, you're so cute. I just want to pet you.
Hi,
All
welcome
right.
guys.
Yo, hi, welcome to Endgame. Sheba Squad introducing you to the little Poe who's doing a documentary on VR. Yeah!
Yeah.
Yay!
Yeah, man. All right, let's go.
Hey,
Nice. Hello, everyone.
Oh, all right.
Thank you,
Good
guys.
job, puppies.
Sheba Squad.
Welcome.
You guys are
Yes,
also
so, yeah.
adorable.
Oh,
Yeah,
thank you.
you guys are really. I like the
Oh, shit, I was
collars. They're they're all
So
doing
yeah,
the same.
thanks for joining us. We have a guest here today,
What's
which
up,
is Little
Pika?
Poe, who
Hello.
is doing a documentary on what is it, the metaverse VR chat? What is it exactly?
It's kind of specifically on social experiences and the kind of human experience of what VR chat does for people, kind of mental health wise and well-being wise.
Okay.
That's what it's about.
Yeah,
Awesome.
we randomly
That's what Psych's
ran
all
into
about.
each other. Yeah, we randomly. Who
Yeah, it's
introduced
very much
us?
like Psych.
Someone introduced us, I think, randomly when I was doing a demo, and they were like, "Oh, you should talk to Little Poe's making a documentary."
yeah,
So
yeah.
it's
They want to kick you.
yeah. So yeah, you're making a documentary, and first of all, I guess to let everyone know, he's filming this as well. So
So this will be
this
this
could be
could be part of the documentary. The show
Yeah.
that we're doing here. So
yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
And so, and also, yeah. So if you guys want to have side conversations too, don't forget there's a room over to our right. Over there
yes,
that you guys can
and
go
the
into.
lobby as well.
Yes. But yeah. So Poe, can you just tell us a little bit about like what led you to want to make this documentary? And what exactly are you trying to capture?
Yeah, sure. So I started making this film in August, and so I guess it's fairly recent. I started recording in August, and I just kind of started to interview people about experiences in VR chat and how kind of online communities have helped their social lives and what kind of gaps it fills socially. And then I realized that there's therapy involved in VR chat. That's when I met you, and I was like, wow, that's really incredible. And then I learned about Phantom Touch, and then I started learning, about relationships as well, and like dancing and fitness and like all these different things that, I realized it's not just about, having friends online. There's all these very physical and tangible elements to socializing VR that I've never come across before. I've always wanted to make a film about online communities, and when I learned about this one, I was just quite blown away
We
with it.
can still hear you
Really blown away.
if you're whispering.
so
Please go through that
So
door.
I thought, okay, well, this is the kind of this is the film about online communities that I think I really want to tell people about,
It's a show.
and I'm quite shocked that
Yeah.
it hasn't been already.
Yeah, and it's yeah, and it's interesting how even while we're talking right now, like new people are joining us because it's so easy for people to find each other, and that's kind of what VR chat is about, is that like communities and new people can interact with one another. Although sometimes it's hard when, yeah, social norms stuff. We might need to move to an invite plus role. I'm not sure. Popo, what you? Awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks, Ghoster. Endgame VR. But yeah, so I guess, did you notice that people were having these kinds of experiences, and that's what led you to be interested in this, or?
Yeah. I hadn't actually tried. Though this is gonna be criminal, and I hadn't actually tried VR until like late October. So in August till October, I hadn't tried VR yet. So I was still quite alien to the fact that, all the kind of just all the elements, because obviously, whenever I ask people, oh, what's VR like? What's VR like back in August? They were like, oh, I just can't explain it. I just can't explain it. So it was always really hard for me to really understand the film I was making. I just loved the online community element back then. And then I tried VR and I was like, oh, I see. Okay. And that's when I started really becoming aware of all the different elements and stuff. And then I was like, okay, wow. Then the film really blew up, and I started going down, all the different rabbit holes that I started finding with
Yes, and
kind of physical experience of VR, as well as the emotional experience.
you have a tall order in front of you, because I think describing this experience of being in VR and having social experiences, if you're making a typical documentary as a 2D interface and a 2D screen, it's going to be very challenging, I think. So it'll be interesting to hear.
Yeah.
And it sounds like you want anecdotes, and we're very interested to hear from you guys about your experiences of social VR. I know we've talked about that in past episodes as well, but especially
Yes.
Poe, if you have questions for people or anything, people can come up and line up in the center and kind of, just talk about how, they've experienced VR chat, how they define. I think there's a couple questions, like how you define what is VR chat exactly? A game? How do people define it and stuff like that? So, yeah. So, however you.
That would be really useful. That's what I was gonna say.
Yeah.
For a long time, I've been trying to figure out how to explain what the medium of the film is because about 60% of the film is going to be shot in VR chat like this, and a lot of people
Wait,
who are
what's the
watching
other
this film
40%
have no
going to be
idea.
shot in?
Real life. I've met some people in real life from VR chat.
Oh,
Yeah,
shoot.
sorry, I should have said that. And
Oh, that's great.
I aim to do.
That's cool.
I'd love to do more. I'd love to meet up with some more people and talk about real life, because I think it needs that. For people to really, hold the attention span. And also, I think it does give a really great element to the film if you can see some of the people in real life, because I think that's quite precious.
Yeah. Interesting. Well, we have, I guess, Freeman, did you have something to kind of say about your experiences or anything?
Hello. Yes.
Hiya.
Yeah, I mean, what I found out about VR chat is the thing is, at least here in the UK, still, it's not a widely adapted form of entertainment. Almost, a lot of people see it as, it's a gimmick, and it's like, oh, until they try it, and then they're like blown away. Usually, I mean, one of the things we have against us in the UK is the lack of space. So, I mean, how do you think the future of VR is in terms of engaging people, but for the people who may not have, what do they recommend these days? 2 by 2 meters at least. Because a lot of games are designed for full room now, especially like new sensors that are coming out, and they're all designed for room scale. Not a lot of things are designed for more standing wise. So, I mean, do you think there is a future for for more of the, I mean, people call it demo wise kind of thing, but you can make something that is more sit down or standing up, limited movement, really good. Kind of like the that what's that game, that James Bond one, that the one we have to defuse a bomb and solve a mystery, that one. Sorry, I waffled on.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you think, Poe?
Well, yeah, that is an issue. I would love to see some more CE Play stuff as well. I'm not sure. I think that's not dependent on kind of technology, because I think people will want to be like, you need this because it's an epic adventure and it's really cool because you can have so much space. I don't know if that's why games are pushing that. I agree, it'd be really cool to see something.
Yeah.
I'm not really sure how and what the boundaries are, marketing wise and producing why that we need so much of a big room scale. I certainly think that VR chat is probably a great one to play with that much space.
Yeah.
I mean,
it also works
the thing
without
is VR
space.
chat. Sorry.
Yeah, no,
The thing is, VR chat doesn't require that much space. I mean, it's more about, you know, being immersed. You know, I mean, what you don't need to like crawl around on the floor or do some crazy stuff with full. I mean, I know some people here with full body, and I'm sure they're showing it off, and it's brilliant. But you don't need it. The thing is, in VR chat, you can. It's all about being in the same like the world, isn't it? I think that's what makes VR chat kind of unique, because you don't need a ridiculous amount of space to be able to experience being in the same world as someone who obviously has more mobility in VR. You know what I mean? So, yeah, but that's all I got to say. So
interesting. Yeah, thank you, Freeman. Yeah, Radical.
Okay, cool. Hello, I'm Radical.
Hi.
Hi.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I don't know about. Oh hey, how are you? Yeah, I don't know much about that Phantom Touch stuff, but I hear it a lot. What is that? And have you ever been Phantom? Like, I don't get it.
Yeah,
I'm serious.
I can explain that, or would you like to like, because you're the one in VR, or would you like?
Yeah, sure. I mean, basically the idea, from my understanding, and let me know if this isn't correct, but like Phantom Touch is this idea that when you are in virtual reality and you're immersed in the world and you feel, and someone else reaches out their hand and it interacts with your avatar, that because you've embodied the avatar and have a sense of presence in the environment, that you actually feel like you are being touched. It's kind of, it kind of mimics a touch in a way. Yeah, Pika, did you have something to add to that?
Yeah, it's actually a phenomenon called Mears and Siva. It's kind of actually, I really want to get this psychology community, the academic psychology community, on the subject, because like they believe that Mears and Siva is actually like a very rare phenomenon, because the way they've been testing it is like they have someone sit down and then they in a mirror, and then it looks like they're being touched, and then some people, like about like very, very small percentage of the population could feel it, and that's what they've recorded. But what I'm finding out here is that like more, I don't know if it's like a bias, but like at least like 40% of the people on VR chat can experience this phantom touch, which is in reality is mere synesthesia.
I don't feel no phantoms.
Well, then you might be at 60% of the population that's on VR chat, and it might be a bias because the people that like more are gonna gravitate towards VR have Mears and Siva, or they don't. Like, who knows?
Yeah, yeah. So feeling that touch is important. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, and also it increases that sense of immersion and social connection, which is what the unique part of what VR chat provides, as opposed to playing a game alone, where you're with these not with real kind of people. When someone is real, and you're talking to them, and they reach out your hand and they touch you, or you feel that, and you feel that kind of like input in your body, that physical input, it's a very striking kind of experience, I think, that draws people towards continuing to do that. I know that when VR chat first started, there was not very much touching and patting on the heads and stuff like that, but all of a sudden there was this kind of shift where people started getting very close to each other and touching and cuddling and things like that, and it seemed to be that kind of phantom touch that was driving that. Okay, yeah, bye. That's a really interesting question. Yeah, thanks, Radical Mom.
Like DRP.
Yeah,
I don't know where the legality of that's gonna go. Because if you get phantom touch, you don't like it. Oh my god.
True. Well, we have personal safety bubbles and all that kind of stuff. That's kind of why they built that in.
All right. So, Little Poe, I'm just curious. So, with all the, because there's a number of free and like paid VR social games, you could say. What makes VR chat so different from these other games that are out there comparatively?
Oh wow, super good question. And I'll try and answer it in my best way. Well, firstly, VR chat is free, so everyone can play it, and that was really important to me because even desktop users who can't like afford VR and then also can't afford VR games, they have a place to be social as well. And then I haven't actually tried. Oh, go on.
Are there widely used social VR platforms that aren't free? Does anybody know of?
I think Orbis VR maybe. And there's like a few of them.
Oh yeah,
Orbis. Yeah.
What is more of a game.
Was Rex?
Okay,
I
the
guess.
only-
Are you asking
on,
about games
it's
specifically?
cross-platform, is across all platforms, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, but I think that what VR chat has going for it is really that desktop, that people on desktop can play it. It's not just an exclusively VR thing that
Yes.
excludes people. And I think that the desktop thing actually pushes more people to buy VR and play and get VR.
I think it's the-
because that's what
I think
that's what
Certainly
pushed me to
did
buy
for
it.
me, that's for sure.
I think it's the creative
No.
aspect.
Yes. Yes.
You can be
Custom
anything. Rec
avatars.
Room, you're limited to your avatar, but if you want to be like a picture of like Shaq's face on the floor, you can. If you want to be a
Corey in
moth
the
or
house
a
box.
Sheba,
If you want to be Corey in the house as a house, you can.
I could be a man.
Yeah.
Yes.
But,
Yeah, so being able to be
well,
anything with any kind of avatar. Okay.
Yeah,
I've heard-
that's
I've
probably
heard-
the biggest reason, actually. I would think.
Individuation.
Self-expression.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've also heard
And
that
that-
I've heard VR chat described as Second Life, what Second Life should have been or could have become. I don't know how many people actually took part in Second Life when they were younger or anything like that, but
A little bit.
it was basically it was like a free world basically that was like completely open and everything and anything anyone could do. Now, I think that's what this is what was kind of like intended. Like people can mold the world to how they want. They can build whatever they want. And they can do whatever they want within reason, and it's not just something that's going to be gatewayed or like somebody you can only do this or that. So I think that's all for right now, unless you want to talk a little bit more about the differences.
Yeah, with other social VR. Yeah, did you have any other thoughts?
No, I was going to talk about the creative aspect, but you covered that really well.
Yeah.
That is the biggest thing. So.
Ghost Region?
No, I think you got it.
I can add one bit there if we have time. Just
Sure.
The other thing is that is the ownership. Hey, so for me, it's the sense of ownership as well. Is that when you bring something in, whether it's your avatar or your world, it feels like that's yours, and now you can kind of be in a world with that. So the sense of ownership makes you feel, I guess, makes you want to come back. So.
Yeah, and it also taps in all of these things seem to tap into meaning and purpose, like tapping into that sense of purpose where you build something and then you're able to go into it and share that experience with your friends and things like that. That seems to be a really powerful kind of thing. And also Rejinx, hey, I see you. I haven't seen you in here in a long time. Not to put you on the spot. Hey, but I'm curious because we were just talking about. I don't know if you were here when we were just talking about. The difference between VR chat and other social VR stuff, but I was wondering, do you have any input on, I know you play Orbis a lot, and I've really liked Orbis.
Well, and the way I described the difference is I played a lot of VR chat, and then I got sucked into Orbis, Orbis became VR chat with stuff to do. So, like, in that it has, raids and stuff. So it's hanging out with your friends, because most of the time we're socializing and the same as in here, but there's some type of progression that built into it. Now it doesn't have the creative aspects of VR chat, but it definitely, so for the gamer, like I'm naturally a gamer, it definitely gives you it gives a group challenge. And now I have a guild that I've actually been into that's almost like family, because we've done so much. And man, gaming in VR, especially in a real group gaming experience, it's different than anything else. It's almost like it's like playing in a sporting event or whatever. Like, it's much more visceral, and like you tell stories about, hey, remember that time whenever this thing popped out, and we have a guy named Cowboy screamed like a little girl and ran away, and I guess it's using game to play in the social environment adds, I guess it's a way to have a challenging experience without no one being in danger or having to physically meet up with a large amount of people and actually like do a physical thing in the real world, where in VR it's vicariously very similar.
So there's more concrete goals and things like that.
Yeah. But definitely the creativity of VR chat to me is is its uniqueness compared to throughout all of VR. I mean, it's the Wild West of VR.
Now, Ghoster had something to say as well. Should get Ghosters?
All I wanted to point out was there's also another free one that's kind of fell to the wayside, Altspace. Well, again, it's not like VR chat and its customizability, but it was one of those things.
Shut down.
No, it didn't. It's still live.
No.
Oh, really?
It came back.
Still
It was announced.
And it still has a
It was
decent
announced
sized
that they were
community
going to
too.
close down, but then someone bought them at the last second and gave them enough funding to keep going.
Keep the lights on.
Yep. But like, it might not have Altspace might not have the customizability of VR chat, and not the intense world creation, but there is world creation. And one of the cooler things that I have noticed is that colors, like how everybody here has their own custom avatar and stuff for what they want to represent themselves as. In Altspace, you have your own very specific color. Like my specific color that I picked out of that game just kind of one day was 32496F, which is the hex code for a certain kind of grayish blue. And I haven't let go of that color. That is my color. And if anybody asks me if I own a color, that's my color. That my very specific color.
So that's like a gradient, not to make a color pun, of self-expression, right? Where where on one hand you've got zero self-expression, and then you go up a level and you can determine your own color and your like as a very visible quality. And then there's VR chat where you can literally take on any shape and form that you can technically achieve in the constraints of of Unity, basically.
Yeah, freedom of expression.
Yeah. Sorry, to add quickly a quick note about the Altspace stuff. A thing to note about it is, despite the limited expression of avatars, people there have to focus on the social part, and lots of deep personal social relationships have developed there, and it's I don't know. So even when you strip away all this fancy stuff, you can still have a very impactful platform.
True, Altspace is more diverse, with the cross-platform VR and things like that.
Yeah, I believe somebody on Altspace had gotten married. They had met on Altspace and ended up getting married.
That's happened on VR chat too.
Real life
Twitch
too.
and TV, Twitch and TV's boyfriend proposed to her, and they're getting married. They met on VR.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's incredible.
That's
so nice.
That's all. I appreciate your time.
Yeah, thanks, PW.
Thanks, PW.
Yeah.
Hello, guys. So I'd like to ask you guys about the future of VR. So it's only been almost 3 years, and VR chat and all of these games and all of this new equipment and stuff, it's mind-blowing how advanced we've got and how fast it's growing. And so my question is, like, what do you guys think the future of VR will be like? Will it take over the world like the Oasis, or will it be a new kind of mainstream social media and gaming and all that kind of stuff?
Do you have any ideas, Pope?
Well, the thing that really amazes me is therapy, but I'll let you describe that, Psych, if that's your area. So I can really talk about, I think that in the future, VR chat may become much more gamey. Or maybe not VR chat specifically, but I think social experiences in VR, a bit like what you described with Orbis, it'll be most experiences will become like that. But I think currently VR chat is like focused on just socializing, just talking to people, and there's some games, but they're not quite polished. But when you get to an MMO kind of gameplay, I think that
it seems to me that, like, in order for it to become an Oasis metaverse sort of scenario for everybody to be in on it, you have to. It kind of brings up the MMO thing, where you need more things to do on it, because right now VR is very heavily centered towards the gamer audience. And there's games to play and there's, places to hang out. But the reason the internet came along and took over everything is because like we started doing everything on the internet. You could do art, you could do studying, you could do work, you could do communication, you like everything that it enabled everybody to do just got easier and easier until we could spend a huge chunk of our activities on the internet. But until we have that in VR, I think it's kind of an open question as to what the potential is, because not everybody's going to be interested in a platform where you just hang out in VR. A lot of people are, a lot of wonderful people are, and artists are, but maybe not everybody.
Okay. And then one last question, like I didn't know, so like I bet someone in the audience probably doesn't know it either. Like, are you guys just gonna say this at the end? Like, do you can you guys like just share like your social media or website or whatever so we can check you guys out? For anyone that doesn't know it.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, certainly.
Yeah, and we'll have it posted on the YouTube stream as well if you want more information about stuff.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I just wanted to add
Brianna-
something about the future. I just want one last thing about the future of VR stuff. I think education is a very, very under explored area, and I think that potentially the second we can prove that there's some kind of educational experience that like a set of maybe like middle school through high school or something like that, if we prove that VR can greatly enhance that educational experience, that all of a sudden we could see a rapid shift of adopting VR, like parents having it for their kids to increase their standardized test scores, and like all of a sudden it could become mainstream. So if we just find one of those uses for improving someone's life or therapy or healthcare, things like that, then I think all of a sudden once the utility is realized, and things like the Oculus Quest that are coming out that are very cheap, $400 without a computer, but it's pretty good. It has hand controllers in it. Yeah.
I read fiction about that where there's schools in VR and the way this was in Ready Player One, but it's in other things too, where like you send the kid off to school and they go to their VR group to go to school, because the classroom in VR has the potential to be so much more engaging and expansive and has a lot more options than just sitting in a classroom with a desk and like you're just in a room, so Ibrana, you raised your hand. Was that what that was?
Yeah.
Yeah. I was just gonna add to the way it was kind of going thing, because I really liked Rejinx's term. He said that this was kind of like the Wild West of VR, which I thought was probably the most appropriate thing I've ever heard said about this, because that's kind of what this is. VR chat and other groups that are doing the VR stuff is that like the VR technology is in the phases of laying down the foundations, and much like the Wild West, you lay down the foundation somewhere, colonize it, and either it fails or it does really well, and we're still in that stages. And that's why VR chat in particular might be more, at least in this stage, might be more of the focus than other games or whatever, because it has that freedom to just be anything. There isn't any particular goal in mind. And for a time in the development of the technology when we don't really know how we want it to be, because there's a lot of things about the technology and the way it's used in game that are changing. Like for some reason, developers, when they first started developing VR stuff, thought that teleportation was going to be the best way. People were going to want that because moving around was going to be too nauseous, and VR chat threw that out the window and said this is standard, and like it wasn't like a big technological thing, but it was everybody felt that this was the best way. We learned that we can quickly adapt to movement in VR without getting motion sick, because it's not real motion, it's visual cues. And so, I just really like the comparison to the Wild West, because I feel like that's the image.
It's
that
like
I really like.
I've seen this development before. It's with like early YouTube, or even, let me get more specific, user generated content online. before YouTube, there was always like obscure websites of like Homestar Runner, and then there was Newgrounds, and then became YouTube, and no one really knew what to use YouTube for. But now, like today, if you're gonna go like, I'm gonna make a new YouTube channel, there you have like almost like a standard to go through. Like you tell your audience to like and subscribe. You have like your weekly uploads, and it's it's pretty standard at this point, kinda.
Yeah, cultural norms almost.
No, I mean, I agree. I mean, no one likes my home videos I uploaded to YouTube 15 years ago. So, you know what? You can still find them on YouTube. So it's kind of fun. Yeah, there's it.
Actually, I wanted to add more thing. I forgot that I had one more thing to add on to what I was saying earlier. Is that I would agree. Was it Poe that said? Sorry, was it Poe that said that he thought that the future would end up being more like Orbis types things, where games would eventually have goals in mind?
Yeah.
Because if that's the case, I agree with that. I'd agree with that. Like once the Wild West phase is over, we're gonna get more games which have goals. Once everything is standardized, I think we'll have a game like once the foundations are laid, we'll have goals and people playing whatever. That's all I had to say.
No, that's
I don't agree.
Yeah, so that's.
All
Well,
right, I've got a question. I've got a question for Lil Po. So, VR chat is amazing and immersive, but then there's always that like really dark part of VR. Like the people that get like way too into VR and almost like they didn't really develop themselves as a human being, like an individual, and they have that void within them, and they just use VR chat to dump that void like themselves into. So you're talking about the people that have been, with 5,000, 10,000, like 11,000 hours on VR chat, within the past year. Like what are your thoughts on that? Let's say, like, have you met anyone? Because I assume you've been talking to a lot of people on VR chat. Like, have you met anyone that's been like, they've gone in their head somehow, they said, no, I can be someone here. I'm nobody in real life, but I can be someone in VR. And what are the implications of that? Because I know your documentary is trying to like explore the mental wellness of VR in, more in a positive light, but there's always that contrast.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I think that's really important to recognize, Pika. And it definitely does exist. It's like a strange problem of VR chat being isolating, yet also being extremely social. And that's something quite hard to explore. I haven't met anyone who. Oh, go on.
I mean, there's that outlet. There's that outlier in anything. Like anybody who's like really, really into like playing chess. That's all they do. Or they're really into fast food. Or really into religion. Like it's there's always that outlier.
Well, it becomes
I know a guy who's really, really into collecting plastic lawn chairs, and they know the manufacturer date of every single model and every single plastic lawn chair. It's like that's his thing.
Well, it depends on. I think it depends on whether whether socializing without, like, we wouldn't say, oh my God, someone is socializing for 3,000, 4,000 hours a year is, there's some problem with them. So the question really becomes like, what is VR chat? It gets back to the question that you were asking. What is VR chat? Is it a social support? Is it social support? Is it just a game? Is it a story? Is it, what is it? We make of it what we want. But I think that if it's not, removing people's ability to function in the real world, it makes it hard to say that it's like a bad thing that someone's spending so much time. If they're getting a sense of meaning and purpose, self-efficacy, like feeling like they're accomplishing things, forming relationships, feeling more confident about themselves, changing their image, all of those things are positive things that can result. But I think some of these things are unknown, and we need more research into them as well. Figure out what everything has positives and negatives to it. So.
Okay.
That's the thing. Like none of this has been researched.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Simple
we
as that.
definitely need more research. So if anyone wants to give me funding, no, I'm kidding.
Oh yeah, here we go.
Yeah.
Me
too. I got virtual funding right here. We go. Yeah.
Yay.
Cut of Hellboy Patreon. He's breaking it in.
Yeah.
in your belt and go off
Oh
and
my
research.
god, so many
Mine's
grants.
done on
So many
virtual
grants.
like foxes. There we go.
Ah, nice. Cool. Yeah, thanks, Pika.
All right, yo, thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks,
very
Pika.
One quick thought on that subject, Psych.
Yes.
If we have a second.
Yeah.
So the social VR chat implications are interesting about playing it too much, but that's neither here nor there. I think it's probably something we'd want to talk about in a different show. But I think honestly, single player VR is going to be one of the things that people really need to look out for. Simply because having played now 380 hours of Skyrim VR, I played a lot. I only played a couple hours a night. But it's it's super fun. That said, I'm super aware of the fact that I don't want to play it too much, right? I don't want to get sucked into that hole where I'm literally playing it, 8 hours a day. I play like maybe a couple hours a night. So I think the danger for some people, especially if they have, that they aren't satisfied with their real life, is the thing that Skyrim does is it builds an entire world populated with semi-realistic NPCs who are basically there to serve you. Like you're the center of everything. Like everyone is doing your stuff, and so that I feel like that could be incredibly addicting, possibly to a detrimental way to someone, because they would just isolate themselves in this thing where nobody's going to argue, nobody's going to challenge them. Everyone just exists like they're essentially the center of the universe. So I think, as that when the next Skyrim comes out, the one that's built for VR and is not modded, a 10-year-old game that was modded to work, we could have a real problem there.
Yes. And you raise a good point that we're talking about VR as one monolithic thing, but really it's the experiences within VR that define what we're talking about. Like it's like if someone was going shopping for 6,000 hours a year and spending all their time in like malls or something, like we would see that. But if they're going out with friends and doing other healthy things, so the medium is different from the actual content. But I see we're getting a lot of people in lines. Oh yeah, go ahead, and then we'll. Potentially, yeah. We're unaware. Oh, yeah. That's what I couldn't remember if your mic was inactive, so last time I didn't repeat. Okay, yeah. The fact that VR chat tracks hours, does that affect the way that people feel about it and talk about it? Yeah, I think so. I think this is why Apple just implemented screen time on the iPhone, because they're trying to help people become more aware of the number of hours. Yeah, it's really depressing too. I'm like 3 hours a day average. I'm
Google's
like,
doing
that
it
is
on Android too.
a lot. Yes, Android. Yeah, so Android and tracking hours seems to be a really big thing and helping us to better understand our how much we're using these technologies. So,
Yeah, it helps with
Catapult.
research,
Yes, exactly. Those too.
Yeah, I got 2 points. I brought this up before. I first started social VR in Altspace, and like Ghoster mentioned and Owlboy mentioned, is multi-platform, so people with Gear VR with the phones on their strapped to their face could get into this thing. And the thing that was really cool, there was an old gentleman. He was, I believe, 77 years old, 73 or 77, I can't remember. And he used to go on there nightly, almost religiously, and he'd go play that disc golf game on Altspace. And he was the nicest guy. He didn't go out of his way to talk to people, but if people were in the game, in the disc golf game, he'd shoot the breeze with them and all that. Nicest guy. But so to him, it was kind of like a free game that he really enjoyed and whatnot. And when Altspace was supposed to shut down, I told him about this place, that he could play it on desktop, and he kind of vanished. And I went back to Altspace a few times to see if he had ever come back, and he never did. But the other point I want to bring up regarding VR is basically what we're seeing right now is just the tip. It's a very small, I would say probably a very small percentage. You go with industry. How many VR headsets are in industry? Like you take these really high-end ones, these $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 headsets that are out there, and they're using this for design. Like let's say an architect will have this setup where a customer goes in, I want you to build me a house. Okay, so he goes into this CAD/CAM program, works at it for a few weeks, and then he calls the customer back. Customer actually gets to walk through his house before there's a shovel that's been in the ground. And then he can make changes. No, I don't like these track lights. I'd rather have recessed lights, and so on and so forth. And they make these changes, and before the house is even built.
Yeah. No, that makes sense.
I kind of work in that industry as you're talking about.
Yeah.
there's a lot of okay, get batting around my NDA. The current trend of the VR industry, a lot of businesses have assumed that consumers don't really want. Okay, this is going to piss a lot of people off. All right, so let's go in the backstory here. So back in 2017, Samsung Gear tried to push. It was Samsung. Yeah, Samsung tried to push the Gear onto every single person that bought a new Samsung phone. So they'd be like, "Oh, hey, you bought a Samsung. Well, you get a free Samsung Gear. So here's your phone. Boop, this transaction, and your free Samsung Gear. Boop, and they scan it into their the machine. But that boop is a transaction. So then they could take that data point and be like, wow, so many people just want mobile VR. Like, look at all these units sold. And then the only default app that was on the Samsung VR phone was like Samsung VR Netflix. And so they were like, okay, well, what is this thing I got for free? Oh, okay, I put my phone in it. Okay, what is there to do on here? I can watch Netflix. All right, let's watch Netflix. And so they log on to Netflix, and then there's their data point. They're just like, wow, every single person that got Samsung Gear VR logged into Netflix. That's what everyone must want to do in mobile VR is watch Netflix. And so now Oculus Go has just one of their main data points of selling Oculus Go is you can watch YouTube. Yay!
Is your point that there's not any users that are actually interested in like doing the VR touring of their houses, or like what is your
that is the thing is that the industry is a little bit confused of what VR is going to be used for. A lot of they're either going for the mobile VR. The industry is aiming for two factors. There's the mobile VR market that they think that the consumers are going to want to have, and then there's the high-end enterprise market. Where that's where HTC made the Vive Pro
Where the big
with its
money
like
is,
multiple
isn't it?
base stations. Yeah,
Yeah.
like a VR arcade.
Yeah.
Because they assume that it's
Yeah,
either
VR
it's
arcades
either
and the Pro.
you're an
That's where
industry
it's at.
venue or it's mobile. Like that's where the industry assumes that people want VR.
Well, I think it's
Yeah.
it's obviously still a really young market, and like I know that there's a lot of like figuring out what's new and like what's gonna happen because
Well, the sad thing is, at the end of the day, the more the enterprise adopt VR, the more money they're gonna pour into us.
I will say this.
Yeah. So
VR chat's
Pika, if
the
you
only
wanna-
platform
Pika,
that's gotten people. Yeah.
If you should get in line to talk too, because there's a lot of people in line as well. So.
Sorry.
Yeah, I know we're gonna get in sidetracked, but I just want to make sure that we're getting to everyone as well. But you're making very interesting points. Yeah. Thanks, Catapult.
Oh, okay, so I guess my point has evolved as the conversation has moved throughout.
Yes.
But going back, we were talking about the psychology of VR and what the dangers of VR addiction, possible dangers, or even have manifested maybe in VR chat. But I think a lot of it is values as a society, right? Because the fact is with VR, while I am a lover of VR, it does not cross the boundary into the real world. Like AR has the possibility of, you can wear glasses and have them like while you're cooking, it'll have the recipe, or while you're playing golf, it'll show you the wind direction, right? The AR has a lot of real world possibilities, but VR really doesn't. VR is completely an intellectual I guess, thing that you do, right? It's interaction with either a program or interaction with people. And so, like, if somebody spends 3,000, I guess the trouble is some people, once they realize they can socialize in VR, no longer, if they're a person who maybe they don't work, they're in a situation where maybe they're either disabled or they're a teenager and they don't have to work. But once they realize they can socialize without ever leaving the home, they just won't ever leave the home. And because
Some
like
people,
my
yeah.
wife is a good example. Yeah, my wife never wants to leave the home. Like she gets anxiety anytime she goes anywhere. And
She got
again,
you.
now, is this a bad thing or a good thing? I mean, it's for society and a person to decide. Like, is it okay for a person to get all of their social interaction through non-IRL interactions? And I mean, that's a psychological thing. I don't think we've even decided as a society.
But also, and you make a really good point, and I think another thing on top of that is that some people have been able to leave their homes for the first time as a result of VR. So we see both ends of the spectrum, which is very interesting. And also, Poe, you've mentioned this about like doing therapy in VR. Like my dream would be, can you use the VR to do therapy with people to help them overcome their real life obstacles and actually help them interact with the real world in a more healthy way? I think that might be possible as well, potentially.
Just a quick note, we got to start wrapping things up, so the people in line right now are going to be the last people we'll take questions from, or questions and comments.
Okay.
And Owlboy.
Hello. I might have missed it at the very beginning because things were a little hectic, but back on the topic of your film that you're working on, and I apologize again if this has already been answered, but what groups are you focusing on, and what kind of, I don't know, diversity of voices and all that? Is that a focus?
Yeah, it is. I'm trying to talk to all groups, really. I've been in the early days. I was just interviewing, people that I met.
Okay.
And I was just interviewing random people who had a voice and just really wanted to talk. I interviewed a lot of desktop users, and then I started interviewing a lot of VR users. And kind of last week and this week, I've been talking to people with a bit more of a status in VR chat, a bit more, a bit more time spent as well, like Psych and Pika over there, and doing this. But I definitely want to go back to the kind of more just users of VR chat. One group that I really... Oh, go on.
Is your focus on kind of, it's not on like the narrative of VR, right? It's more like, it sounds like it's more of a kind of a snapshot of how people are experiencing it right now.
Yeah, yes, it is, exactly. Yeah, you're right. The one group that I realized is really special and quite big in VR chat is the transgender community, and I've recently been really trying to recognize that, and I've interviewed a few people about their kind of experiences with that. That's a group that I've been pushing to represent recently. Are there any groups that you want to see represented, or anyone to be represented?
Oh, well, this is why I bring it up, because what I find fascinating about VR chat at this point. So when I started hanging out, and I think when you guys started hanging out too, it was like 2016, 2015. Everything was really small. We all knew each other. We were one, like this. I always thought of it as this like art commune kind of thing that was going on. We were making cool things and showing it to each other. And it exploded in late 2017. And now there's all of these small groups, like, and it's easy to classify them based on like these archetypes and these affiliations and their interests. So it can be like, there's furry groups that I never hang out with, that I never see. And then there's ones that I do. And there's all of the anime characters that are everywhere, and that's a big group. There are people that are just making content. There are people that love to make all of these avatars that have cool animations and music and all that to show each other. There's all the full body tracking dancers. Like there's all of these different aspects that bring people and keep them here, that are all social, that are, I don't know, it's this wide range of stuff. So I was just curious, because it's really easy for myself and lots of people to get really into their group and to focus on their friends, because it's hard to focus on lots of people, right? So
you're real limited, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I find it fascinating how all of these bubbles are coexisting and kind of bump into each other every so often, and all of that. And I think we saw some of that bumping into each other tonight, where people were very like what is this? What is Endgame? This is one of those bubbles that a lot of people didn't know about, and I think some people tonight showed up and now they know about this new thing that happens in VR chat. So if you can depict all of this wide range of things and introduce people to new bubbles that they didn't know about, I think that would be really powerful.
Yeah, I'm really trying my best. I did kind of talk about that earlier. You know, when I first tried VR, and then subsequently a few weeks after first trying VR for the first time, I was like, oh, all of this exists, and like I I found VR chat events Discord, and I looked at the list of things in the VR chat events, and I went, oh, my documentary is so narrow-minded, extremely. So I blew it up a bit. Yeah, dancing in VR is definitely recognized, and I am.
Yeah, and that's what I like about Endgame is that I think it's at least one context that sometimes brings people from different backgrounds together to have discussions, and
it is.
That's like one of my favorite things. Kind of breaks that silo a little bit, because it's like it's a topic oriented kind of thing, and yeah, and so yeah, I think that's really cool. You make a good point about diversity too. About to capture those communities.
Yeah. Good luck.
Yeah, thanks, Cowboy.
Hi, sorry, I'm a little nervous, so sorry if I stutter a lot, but
It's okay.
I just first wanted to say thank you all for like having this session. It's been really eye-opening because I knew there was a lot of people on VR who could be this understanding, but you know, you run into a lot of people who aren't. But to not hold this on for too long, the thing I wanted to talk about was social groups in VR. Obviously, there's a lot of them, but there's a lot of things I've noticed that depending on which social groups you're in, you're treated a lot differently as you are in real life. And, you know, depending on whatever just your avatar you use, whatever voice you have, if you pick up on social cues or not, you will be treated very differently. I just wanted to ask, like, what were your viewpoints on, you know, how people treat each other in VR, whether it be passive or aggressive or something in between?
I gotta say that was one of the harder parts of the like population explosion that we had, because before like everybody joined, before the Knuckles meme and everything, like we all knew each other, and so it was extreme. It was like in comparison, it was very civil. Like we all. You know, generally I knew everybody that I saw, and like we all, you know, shared conversation on the Discord and everything. And but with the population explosion, there were suddenly just tons of anonymous people, and I think that's kind of the tough part that people are trying to figure out, is how to deal with the anonymity that enables people to be you know, unkind to each other. They're looking for the thrill or whatever it is of being rude or gaining some sort of social status with their friends, or whatever it is they're trying to do by behaving that way. Like there's no, you know, VR chat has done a lot to install as much tools as they can to handle that, like on an individual level. Like I can block whoever I want, I can mute whoever I want, but socially, like as a collective, it's a really hard problem to manage when we don't have any enforcement. We can't control people in any way because it's such a completely free and open you know, environment. So there's pros and cons to that. Obviously, you got to have kind of a thick skin if you want to come and engage with random strangers where there's no pressure except their own conscience on how they behave, and often that's not enough to make people behave well.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, and I think it's interesting, Poe. Maybe you could capture this. Jill, this is a really good point you're bringing up. Is like maybe to interview people who came into VR chat in the early days, and interview people who came into VR chat like after it exploded, and ask them what kept them around. Yeah, because what were their early experiences? Yeah, and have a discussion. Yeah, that would be great. That little focus group. I think that, yeah, because like I think that it would be hard. I think it's harder to get in some ways it's harder to get into VR chat now. I would predict if your first experiences are, you know, trolls and negative and things like that. On the other hand, there's more groups that you can join and find, but how do you find them and things like that? So, Jill, you're bringing up a really interesting point, I think, about all the different types of experiences you can have, and it depends on what types of groups you interact with. Well, which is a really important kind of factor there. I don't know, Poe, if you had any thoughts, or Shale. wrap it up.
No, I think you covered it really well. I totally agree, and I think that's actually a really neat idea. I do have a segment that I want to dedicate to the history of VR chat and how it began, and I would go to the old hub, and then go to the new hub, that kind of thing.
We should
so
interview.
I think in that... Oh, go on.
Sorry, Jesse and Graham, and yeah, the people, you know, when they created VR chat and stuff. Yeah,
I'd
I can
love
text.
to.
I can text them. Yeah, I'll try to get
like
them.
my
Sykes got connections.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's the whole point.
Yeah, that would be amazing.
Yeah,
The only
yeah.
thing that I can add to your question is, there's obviously pros and cons, but one of the big pros is that VR chat, there's not a lot of judgment here, compared to real life. You know, they're always judging in real life, so I think judgment is a huge part of how the treatment is different in VR chat compared to real life. It seems much more open here, especially with VR users. So that's kind of my point. Is judgment is much more open, which has been a really beautiful thing for me to recognize.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, as just one final thing, like I do agree that the community here is a lot more open and there's a lot of diversity and people are really allowed to express themselves. But even though people are a lot more open and accepting, there's still a lot of judgment that goes into it. And it's the same thing with like it's harder for people to get into VR now with all the judgment that's happening. Like I've gotten so much hate for using anthropomorphic animal avatars, and I can understand why,
Yeah,
because
that's a really
you know,
common one.
yeah, there's so much you know, so much bad like I can't think of the term. Just people don't really
Prejudice.
associate. Yeah, people don't associate like
Prejudice.
animalistic avatars or characters very well with people. They think that people should just, you know, be who they really are and shouldn't express themselves in these ways. And I totally understand and respect that. But, you know, encountering these things in VR chat, I love this community and how open it is. But there is a lot of hate within the community that, you know, I don't think will be able to be changed soon.
It definitely exists. Yeah, there are different cons to it.
It's a problem to
Anyone
solve.
who's been around for any sort of amount of time, you see it.
It's
It
a
can be
problem to
nasty.
solve not just here, but also in any video game you
Yeah,
encounter,
yeah.
any
Any
anywhere.
sort of
'cause, like,
online community. Yes.
right, and
We're a
it's
real
something
community.
that yeah, we're yeah, but like in community, in real life communities, there's that, you know, there's dire consequences to not conforming, for instance, and for, you know, acting out and being
Oh, it's just
rude.
hatred. It's just this hatred. There's no need for it.
Yeah.
So
In
there's
normal life,
True.
there's no...
Anonymity increases it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah. When you have the freedom, there's no consequences to it. So it is a problem to work on. You know, something that like everyone can try to do is at least try to normalize kind behavior as much as you can by enacting it yourself. And I hope we can do that. Like I enjoy the company of like 99% of the people I meet on here, and so I hope I consider a lot of you my friends or friends to be, and so like I'm glad those of us that are here can be here.
Yeah.
Thank you so much again. Oh, sorry for taking up so much time, by the way.
No, that
but
was
thank
you didn't take up. That was great. That was awesome. You
Yeah,
did some
yeah,
really good
thank
points,
you.
so-
Oh my god.
Yeah.
All right, it's time to about wrap it up. Right?
Havrex, you have one last quick thing to say?
Yes. First, I just want to say I thank you for having me tonight. I never imagined I would be here when I logged in. But relevant to what was discussed earlier with the explosion of the community, the memers, the role players, in a way, yes, even live streamers such as Twitch streamers, I feel that in some ways VR chat can be misrepresented by these communities that have sprung up as a result of, like, Ugandan Knuckles, for example, when I have met some of the most genuine and coolest people on this game and have swapped Discord info with them to keep in touch even after we have logged off. Do you feel as well that VR chat is misrepresented by these groups that have sprung up?
For sure. I think so.
Yeah,
Sometimes.
yeah. I do.
Yeah.
I mean, you're never gonna get a full picture, you know, of from any individual lens, and so I think, you know, people like we get rewarded for sensationalizing things and for being wacky and everything, and so like that's what gets the clicks and the views. So you got to know that like skews
Yeah, there's-
the what's depicted.
But
There's
at the
whole
same
groups of people
time-
having like authentic interactions that aren't streamed, I guess.
Right, yeah, like it's
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's this popularity that has attracted more people to the game, such as myself even. I discovered VR chat through some compilations on YouTube, and I logged onto the game, and then I started meeting people and discovering what a social hub VR chat turned out to be.
Yeah.
It's double-edged
All
sword.
right. It is, for
exactly.
sure.
That's a good way to put it.
Very double-edged sword.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, I think we've got to call it for tonight. Thank you very much,
Thank you,
everyone, for
guys.
coming.
Oh,
thank
thank
you,
you,
Poe,
Victor.
for being our guest host.
Thanks, Poe.
Oh,
one last.
so
also,
welcome. Thank you for
guys,
having me.
one last thing. One last
thank
thing.
you
If you guys have one last thing, if you guys want to contact Little Poe, how can you do that? You're in our Discord for one.
Yeah,
but-
I'm really
Facial
open to communicating with people on. I've been trying to contact people through Discord mainly. That's what I've been
Okay.
using. So Discord, if everyone has Discord, that's probably the best way to do it because that seems to be the most kind of
yeah,
user-friendly thing that everyone uses. So I'm kind of focusing on that. So
Cool.
that's probably the best thing. I'm gonna
Okay.
be hanging around for a while, so.
Oh, good.
Anyone
Okay,
wants
so
to
people can go in there and talk. Cool. All right, I just want to make sure we had that. All right.
Thanks.
Thanks, Ghoster, to filming.
Yeah, thank you,
And
Ghoster,
Gabe,
for
Who is
filming. Thank you,
Ghoster guy,
Leslie,
mate?
Wow.
for
I heard he's
creating
a
our
freak.
endgame stage. So,
I mean, I
and
love
thanks
this
for coming,
endgame
everyone.
VR dude, though.
Come up and get a
Yes.
group picture.
Everyone, stage security is turned off.
Fuck yeah. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Right when my lights died.
Hey, McClay.
Hello.
I know, right?
Yay!
Oh, God.
Yo, Shiba Squad, come on.
Get up here for a group picture.
What?
Yeah,
do
the
Okay.
Psych. What's our phrase gonna be? I can't think of anything for this.
VR chat.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, we'll go simple today.
Is that
A wider screen.
Wider screen.
Yeah,
wider
screen.
Yeah, a wider screen.
All right, a wider screen. On 3, 2. Oh wait, crap. Nope. Shit, I forgot. Wrong camera.
Damn it, Ghoster.
I needed my photo camera.
Press the button.
All right, 3, 2, 1. Wider screen.
Whatever that means.
Yeah, I missed the reference. What does it mean?
Well, you were supposed to say I love
Yeah, we didn't
Ghoster.
really talk about
great.
immersion, I guess, but
It's
okay.
immersion. Like you have a wider screen if you are immersed in the environment. It's like a existentially wider screen.
Yeah, I think socially it's a wider screen as well.
Did you get it?
Sorry
Yeah, I
about
got
that.
it. That's all good. All right, and that's it.
Yay! Thanks everyone.
Cool. Thanks, everyone.
Yay!
Yeah, thank you. That's amazing.
All right, now wait. Do you guys want to go take HD pictures? Wait, where did everyone? Where all the other Shibas go?
I don't know. I think some of them ended up.
I think they let. Yeah,
Oh,
let me
no.
see.
Okay, well I have to reinvite. I'll send a thing in Discord. HD photos. Here we go.
Oh wow! Now people are going nuts with the remote.
The remote.
Oh no.
Chairs and everything. Yeah, turn on the chairs and everything.
Hey, Lousy, you still got this world, right?
Cool.
We have markers in here now. Hello, Sarah.
Tully.
Hey,
What's up, Mona?
Monap.
I'm watching you.
That's so cool.
No, I'm sitting in a chair.
Random spider just hanging out. Nothing strange about this.
Good to see you.
Nice to see you. It's been a long time.
Yeah, I left VR chat for a long time, and then I just came back